One of the most prominent pieces of landscape in all of Israel is the massive wall of rock at Caesarea Philippi. It's upon this sheer cliff, which is well over 100 feet high and 500 feet wide, that this city of Caesarea Philippi has been built. In 14 AD, Caesar Augustus died, and around the time of Christ's ministry. And the marble temple that was on that hill was enlarged and rededicated by King Philip to Julius Caesar, who was the emperor of Rome and thought that he was a god. So with this massive rock in the background, which had this huge temple which had been rededicated to Caesar, and to the niches that were in that wall in which people put pagan gods, Christ turns and asks his disciples, "Who do you think that I am?" Or who do they think that I am? Do they see me as just another one of these gods that's in the niches on this mountain? Was he simply just another god filling another niche in the wall? And then Christ cuts to the chase and he addresses the apostles. And he says, "Who do you say that I am?" So I think the question of today's gospel is, how does this all relate to our lives today? Jesus is asking us the very same question. Who do you say that I am? Easy. The same scene that we heard described today in the gospel is played out each and every day in all of us. We all have our own Caesarea Philippis, and it begins with the walls that we hold up when it comes to worship. Maybe it's our work, maybe it's our addiction, maybe it's our digital toys, our image, our egos. It's all those things that we hold near and dear in our lives, but are simply empty falsehoods. And Christ comes to each of us with our weeds growing within amongst our wheat, carrying the same faults and indiscretions as Peter the apostle and his disciples. And he asks again the same question, "Who do you say that I am?" But before we answer that question, we have to know who we are. And where does that answer come from? Well, look at Peter. His answer didn't come because he had studied catechism all his life and knew it backwards and forwards. It didn't come from some encyclical, and it wasn't derived from church doctrine or dogma. We are told in this gospel story that it was revealed to him by God the Father. In short, it came to Peter from within. Paul, in his letter to the Romans, tells us that it is God who touches our spirit, our being, and confirms who we really are, so that we may know him and know ourselves. And it is this internal revelation that clicked within Peter. Even with all his imperfections, and one could even say it was because of his imperfections, that Peter opened himself up to the flow of God's grace and that revelation that came to him. I think it points out that God waits for each of us to be open to this gift, waits for us to walk away from the pagan gods in our lives, waits for us to walk away from our Caesarea Philippis, our false rocks, and simply be like the true Cephas, the rock like Peter. You see, by virtue of our baptisms, we are all called to be rocks of the foundation of Christ's church.